Field in Chicago. Michelle Obama's portrait was less weird, though some question whether it actually looked like her at all. The portraits were painted by Kehinde Wiley. Her previous paintings include racially fraught works of white people being decapitated, of course. Mark Steyn is an author and columnist, and he joins us tonight. Mark, I don't know if you're familiar with her oeuvre, but I want to put some on the screen for our viewers who aren't familiar with it. So here's one of them. There's the famous decapitation, the racially fraught decapitation portrait. Now, I sort of wonder, like, you don't have to be too creative. If you flip this around, I mean, that's pretty heavy-duty thing, isn't it? That looks like, well, there's another one. This is the person painting the Obama's portraits?
Yeah, I think this is what happens when you try to be up to the moment.
Yes.
Clearly, the Obamas didn't want to. My advice, if anyone wants to do a formal official portrait of you, is to just climb into a suit, stand in front of a fireplace, or sit in a wing chair, because almost any time you try to do it differently, it comes off worse, and in 5 years' time, you look completely ridiculous. It's like the portrait of Howard Dean in the state capitol in Vermont, which is commonly referred to as the L.L. Dean portrait, because all the other governors are lined up looking like a bunch of stiffs who look like governors, and there's L.L. Dean looking as if he's about to go into the wilderness to commune with Algonquin natives. Anything you do risks, other than the conventional one, risks looking ridiculous. And I think in the case of President Obama, in front of all those leaves, that's very much the case.
That's right. And I should point out, by the way, that his portrait was painted by a different artist from the one who painted his wife's. He may have been a little less sensible than she. So I don't know if you saw this. This is, there are only 9 members of the Supreme Court. One of them is called Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's sort of a hero on the left. And she recently said that sexism is to blame for Hillary losing. Now, Supreme Court justices obviously typically avoid partisan political expressions, but while she was attending a women's conference at Columbia, she aired her grievances about 2016. Listen to this.
I think it was difficult for Hillary Clinton to get by even the macho atmosphere prevailing during that campaign. And she was criticized in a way I think no man would have been criticized. Sexism was played a prominent part.
Does she have evidence for that, or is she just making it up, since she's a Supreme Court justice, I guess?
Yeah, that's the point at which I would have leapt up and said, objection, Your Honor, move to strike. Because there is no evidence. She shouldn't be talking about this, for a start, because and it shouldn't be necessary to state it so obviously, because she's a judge. She shouldn't be doing this. And this is not just political, but it's actually speculative. She's purporting to explain, as Hillary has tried to do, why Hillary lost. And she's revealing that she is making assumptions about half the people who will be appearing before her bench in the court. And in that sense, her speculations, as the lawyers like to say, have no probative value. She is a judge, and she should know better than to concoct evidence based on her own assumptions. I think this is absolutely terrible. You know, I loathe rule by judges, which, alas, this great republic has dwindled down to. But people accept it because they think they're a kind of super legislature, 9 robed regents who are above the law, who are above politics. So if these 9 robed regents start purporting to know the minds of 100 million voters, I think that's actually very disturbing. I think, with respect, this is something no judge should be doing, and she should be rebuked by the Chief Justice for doing it.
Yeah, I wonder what she would make of the majority of married women who voted against Hillary.
Right, but you know something, that's a fact, and that fact could be laid before the court. But what this judge is doing is just actually speculating based on her own prejudices, and that's actually a kind of weird thing
Yes.
for any judge, never mind one who's got this far up the chain.
I agree with that completely. I think it's kind of a serious thing, and I'm glad you think so too. Mark Steyn, great to see you.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.
One professor says you ought to stop having children for the sake of the planet. He'll join us next to explain why. Stay tuned.
Liberty Mutual stood with me when